Welcome everybody. Welcome in this weather, and I'm so honored to have you here and you choose to come to the library and my first in-person program. I appreciate your presence and thank you for your support. And I'm so honored to introduce our keynote speaker, our guest speaker, Miss Amy Wu. And she is an award-winning writer for the women's ag and AgTech movement. She is the founder of From Farms to Incubators, a multimedia platform that uses documentary, video, photography, and the written word to tell the stories of women leaders and innovators in AgTech, especially women of color. From Farms to Incubators includes a documentary that spotlights women leaders in AgTech. The documentary has been screened at over 300 venues, including SXSW, that I don't know what does it stand for.
South by Southwest.
What's that?
South by Southwest.
Amy is also the author of a new book, From Farms to Incubators, Women Innovators, Revolutionizing How Food is Grown, which includes 30 portraits of women founders in AgTech. Civil Eats listed it as a top read. From Farms to Incubators, the initiative was awarded grants from the International Center for Journalists and International Women's Media Foundation's Howard G. Buffett Fund. It is an ongoing initiative with the goal of inspiring more women into working in the food systems and agriculture. In 2020, Amy was named on Words Magazine Groundbreakers 2020 list of 50 women changing the world. She was also named as one of Food Tank's 15 inspiring women leading in the AgTech sector. Prior to starting From Farms to Incubators, Amy spent over decades on an investigative reporter at media outlets, including the USA Today network, where she reported on agriculture for the Salinas, California. She earned her bachelor's degree in history from New York University and master's degree in journalism from Columbia University. She is also an avid open water swimmer and completed the 28.6 miles Manhattan Island Marathon swim in 2010. Wow. As you see, we are honored to have a couple of more people, and I'm gonna offer my special thanks to Mrs. Margot Souza, who has kindly put in the display of her paintings, and also Mr. Dexter Farm for all their contributions of their book, publishing, and photographies that he has done for the women in agriculture and in the people in Amy's book. Please help me invite Amy to the podium.
Thank you. Thank you, Mina, for that really generous introduction. I'm going to just not be behind the podium today, actually. I'm really happy to see this really big group of folks, who came out for a really special event today. From Farms to Incubators is now into its 6th year. It did start out as a documentary, and it started out because I am a journalist. I am a professional journalist. I've been doing it for decades and decades, and this started in 2016 when I was a local reporter for the Salinas Californian. I'm really happy to show you the documentary today after I share a little bit about what is From Farms to Incubators. I'm going to start out from actually the present. How do we get more women to sit at the head of the table when it comes to food and farming and food systems? How can more women be decision makers, either sitting at the board of companies or being the head producers of farms? Today, in farms across the country, according to the USDA, 37.5% of the farms in our country are led by women in some way. When it comes to AgTech and agri-food tech, though, not entirely comparable, but the amount of investment has actually increased in that field, but still only 3% of the billions of dollars being put into AgTech companies is being put into female-founded companies. So there's still a big gap in terms of the contributions that women have continue to play in the food systems, often as the head of the household, making the decisions, or internationally, 60 to 80% of the food that's being produced, a woman plays a role in it as well. So I started off with 2 questions. Solution and the answer, and my passion has been to use storytelling as a platform and as a vehicle to give voice to the women who have contributed to the food systems, who are the founders of agri-food tech companies. Often their voices have not been told, their contributions and their challenges have also not been shared. So as I mentioned, I'm a journalist, and my passion is in telling stories. I started collecting their stories about 6 years ago, first with this documentary, and then with the new book, and then with art, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. I strongly feel that storytelling and art is critical in having more women in the system. So thank you very much, Mina. And I'd like to also, I will later on introduce some of our special guests who will talk a little bit more, but I'd like to screen the film. So my apologies. Usually the film is the first thing I'm going to show, but I'm going to take some time to share a little bit about the project itself and the initiative, and a little bit more about myself and how I got into this. So my story is that this is a big deal of an event today because I've been planning this for about 2.5 years. The pandemic was a huge barrier to actually having this event. The vision for having this event was to have a screening, a reading from the book, which has 30 profiles of the women, and the vision was to incorporate art into this because I wanted to gather a collection of art that celebrates and champions women in ag in some form. And it could be by female farmers, it could be by folks who are just saying, I want my photography to be part of this. So Mina and I have been talking for a few years now, and then so the pandemic obviously set us back. But I really felt strongly about this for a number of reasons to hold this today is because issues of climate change, sustainability, and also equity and diversity have actually, in the few years since, I think they've gathered momentum for different reasons, and we can have a discussion about that. When I started this project 6 years ago, there was nobody writing about women actually who create the innovations for farmers to tackle farming challenges. I didn't even know if they existed myself. So the stories, maybe we have it and everything. So the stories that you will see in the documentary and then you'll see in the book, they actually came from a lot of persistence from asking, do you know any women innovators who are women of color in ag tech as well? So I wanted to share that part of it. The goal of, Mina, I'm going to let you give me the thumbs up when you have it.
Okay.
All right? The goal of this is so that more youth and young people can consider opportunities in the field called agri-food tech. I'm going to ask everybody out there, how many of you know what AgTech is or have heard of it? Raise it high, raise your hands high, please. So I'm seeing like maybe 25% of today's attendees have heard of AgTech, and I'm going to call on some people who were brave enough to raise their hands. Back there, Lindsay, how do you define AgTech and agri-food tech?
I'm going to say something around how technology advances the practices of farming and the food systems, and how modern technology produces more efficient systems.
Okay.
Maybe growing things that,
Efficiency.
growing things maybe in climates that they couldn't previously, or using technology to produce
Mm-hmm.
food in, I don't know, climates
Yeah.
or seasons that they typically wouldn't grow in, bringing
Okay.
farming indoors and using technology.
Right, farming indoors as well. And anybody else? I saw a hand go up here.
I know they're using it in pest management, using drones to scout the fields, in irrigation, everything's going tech to keep track of fertilizers that are going in and the water efficient, to make the water more efficient of what we're using. And also, I read recently that Salinas actually they have a cultivator that weeds. It's kind of looks like a tank.
Looks like a tank, okay.
It's a robot. It's a sensor where it's distinguishing between the weed and the seedling of the lettuce.
Oh, wow. So I hear efficiency to help farmers grow more efficiently in different ways. Anybody else? And it's important. And I guess as consumers, why would that be important, though? I mean, that's a question that one might ask, right? If they haven't heard about AgTech or agri-food tech, why is this so important to consumers? I mean, part of it is that the land, the amount of farmable land is decreasing, right? And with the many problems that are increasing under climate change, things are harder and harder actually to grow. This means that for farmers, actually, it is already really costly to actually farm. But now with the supply chain bottlenecks, with the changes in climate, it means changes in the crop plans, and also access to getting it to consumers as well. So it's actually to make consumers more aware about that also. I chose to focus on women, though, through the gender lens, again, with the hope that more women will be involved in ag tech and agriculture. Also, I'm not sure where we are with the movie, but I will talk about, the book was published in May of 2021. It has 30 profiles of women who have co-founded or founded companies in ag tech. I purposely had a chapter in chapter 15 called Trailblazers in Farming. I chose to add in women farmers who are actually adopting innovation on the farms. I think that they are also champions because they're actually open-minded to either allowing beta testing on their farms or incorporating it into their growing. It's been a couple of years since I've actually found the different women. I've been asked often, how did you find these women? Like, how did you do it? Part of it in the beginning was that I was already a reporter and in California covering agriculture, but I got more and more phone calls and emails from people saying, have you heard about this woman, this female founder, that, female founder? And they weren't just in California, they were in the Midwest, they were in New York, they were in the South. They were in Singapore, they were in Australia, in Israel. And so I really wanted to document all of them. I couldn't document all of them, so I said, let me take as many as I can get into a book. And then the question I often get asked is that, how did you choose then all these women? I picked them, the core of it is their story. They had to be able to be open to sharing their story. How do they get interested in agriculture? Why would they start an ag tech company? The one thing that I found really interesting is that almost 90% of the women were not in agriculture and didn't come from farming families. They did not come from families of being an entrepreneur at all either. And they had backgrounds often in science, technology, engineering, and math, but they did not have the background of starting a company, and they didn't have the background of farming. So I started to wonder what would drive somebody to like drive across the country or to launch their own startup company. How many here are entrepreneurs who have started your own company? I see a couple of hands. Okay. I would actually consider myself having recently started something too. I think it's incredibly challenging. Number one is you're trying to get people to buy into your passion and your idea of why they should care about it. Secondly, if you don't have a track record, often in the sector or in the area of even launching a company, investors or people funding will be like, why should I fund this? Am I funding your passion? And then why should I care? What am I going to get out of this actually? And the third part is building a team. So these are women who I can tell you some of the commonalities is that a lot of them are from immigrant families, the first in their family to actually get a higher degree. They're first in their family to enter the food system. They're first in their family to be entrepreneurs and to launch something. So I often say they found a way to mow down the grass ceiling, not break through the grass ceiling. The last time I did a talk, I actually said break through the grass ceiling, and someone's like, you can't break through the grass ceiling. And actually somebody quoted me on that too, saying, and I was like, when I reread it, I was like, oh my God, nobody maybe noticed that, but it's mow down the grass ceiling. So I'm hoping today that this will work so that I can share the film with you, because it's been 5 years since the original documentary has been made. I've often been asked what has happened to the women, and I'll kind of leave that as a cliffhanger. I will share a couple of positive things, is that there are more women now entering agri-food tech. There are more co-founding or founding AgTech companies. Part of it is that there's much more interest in AgTech and food tech and ag bio. Why is that the case? Why are billions of dollars going into startup companies? Is because I think part of it is the interest in food that has been fueled by COVID-19 and the pandemic. I think each of us has had some experience of having some challenges attaining maybe the foods that we've wanted at a certain price, at a certain place, due to the problems from pandemic, but also recently, so the supply chain bottlenecks as well. So that's the good news. And Mina, are we going to get, you think, is it promising?
I got it, but then it's rolling.
It's rolling. Okay. And then the question becomes, why should we care about having more women in the food systems? I sometimes get asked that, like, what is your purpose? You want more women at the table. Why should we care? I think women come with a unique perspective and talent. And I think it's actually a surprise that I still get asked that question of why should we care about having more women, leading agribusiness companies and so forth. So, some new things about From Farms to Incubators that I will share, and I'll only share bits and pieces of it, is that over the past year, increasingly the women that I interview have been telling me, I really want to make a difference. I want to share my story with the next generation of young people. I want to be a mentor. So I've been working with some colleges and universities on a pilot mentorship program where we will directly connect women who have founded AgTech companies or co-founded with young people, especially young women who are interested in that field. And maybe we'll have some regular check-ins and so forth with the mentor and mentee. The other part of From Farms to Incubators is creating a community and a hub for women working in agri-food. So one thing that I'm really proud to share is that I and a group of women, including some women in the book like Pam Marone, and later on you'll have a chance to circulate and see photographs, and some other women have created a Women in Agri-Food directory that is now we have 800 names on it. And any woman who works in ag tech or agri-food tech should go and put their name and fill out a survey in 2 to 3 minutes, put your name down, your LinkedIn if you like, your email, and we fact check it and we make sure that it's accurate and it's precise, and then you get on the directory. Why is the directory powerful? It's because I've been getting a lot of phone calls from farmers, from investors, from people who want to connect with the women, like, this is great. What an awesome directory that you have. So now we can directly connect with the women, and women can connect with themselves as well. To this day, there is not a community and a hub, I think, just for women working in AgTech and agri-food tech. When I first started 6 years ago, I would attend a lot of conferences and summits and panels in AgTech in Silicon Valley, and there wasn't a single woman on a panel or a single woman speaking. And it got to the point where probably in 2018, a number of women would be like, what's the problem here? You know, why aren't we up there? So some of the summits and conferences actually created panels just to say, here are women founders, just to sit up there. But when we take a step back, we're like, why should we have a panel just saying there are 3 women founders in a whole conference? Women are already contributing. They should be part of the whole landscape and everything. So I'm going to actually stop, and I was going to say this is kind of a condensed small group. I'm wondering if we can, I'm going to open it up to some questions as well, and I'm going to take a few questions about what I just talked about. We will get to the film. I know everybody's anticipating the film. We will get to the book, but we're kind of taking things backwards a little bit. I'd like to actually take a few questions about what brought you here today. What your interest is in.
I'm interested in climate smart agriculture,
Okay.
and I'm wondering how many women are pursuing that type of agriculture,
Climate smart agriculture.
which is sustainable and, rich soil and having more air in those so that you keep the water and you don't have bare land. It's always covered. Is there interest in it?
Yeah, there's absolutely interest in, there's a couple of levels of this, is that it's not all ag tech related. The women who I meet who get into agriculture and food and farming, to them, they're interested in climate, they're interested in sustainability, they're interested in creating a positive change in the food systems as well. I'm going to take the lens off of ag tech for a second and just say there is a new generation of young people and women who actually want to get into farming. They go to college, they maybe study history or literature, and for them, this is a lifestyle, this is contributing back to the planet and so forth, and they're using practices, whether they're organically certified or not, that's a whole different question, but they are using regenerative practices. And then the question becomes, what is a regenerative practices? That could be a whole discussion that we could have today, actually, on this rainy day. So examples might be cover cropping and examining what kind of mix of cover crops can be used on the soil to increase the biodiversity and the nutrients. It could be examining the connection between ecology and agriculture as well, to take a look at the land and to say, maybe there are ways that I could plant, certain I could create native meadows here that might increase the amount of beneficial insects, on my farm as well. I see a real interest in that from the young people. They're not just women. I mean, there are, young men, young women who are interested in that also. When it comes to ag tech and the women that I wrote about, it happens to be that a lot of them were younger. And all of them, I think, have an eye, despite wanting to say we're entrepreneurs and we want to make money, which is great. They also say that we want to positively solve a problem that the food system is facing, whether it be food waste and also food safety. How can we, create something that helps farmers monitor the land to see what diseases and pests are in their soil and so forth. So I would say there is an eye to that, to doing so, yeah.
How do you think AgTech plays a role in allowing the kind of more traditional farm worker to maybe scale up in their position and their role and their contribution if the technology can take care of, for lack of a better word, the back-breaking part of it?
Yeah, right. The balance between human capital and innovation, quote unquote, whether that be robotics and automation or so forth.
And like the quality of their life and the quality of their experience, not having to
Yeah.
stop at 40 or 45 because
To what? To drop it at
you
40?
should stop having to work at 45.
Yeah.
It's so labor intensive. It's so body intensive.
It is so labor intensive and body intensive, and you're right. With the field workers and with farmers themselves, the age is they're aging out, and clearly because it's so taxing, right, physically. I think the positive part about AgTech, and I'll start at the level of not like the robots yet. I'll start at the level of the software that used to manage farms. The positive part about what I'm seeing is that they are trying to make it more farmer friendly so that older farmers, I'm not even sure what older is, but at this point, farmers in general can use it more easily and can be educated and trained in that. I think growers in general are a lot more open-minded to that. And it could be at the HR level, it could be managing staff, less paperwork and so forth. In terms of being schooled and educated on areas on how to actually operate like artificial intelligence or blockchain on, sensors or use a drone to take aerial imaging, I feel like it takes a different extended set of skills. It's true. And that's where education comes. There's people like, oh, it's going to happen. I feel like that's where there's a real opportunity, especially in California, where agriculture definitely leads the world. And also you have so many colleges and universities here. You've got UC Davis here and, Cal Poly, and that's where the opportunity comes to develop a new workforce. And it's not to say that you're taking over people who actually want to work in the field. I mean, I have met a number of young women who are in their 20s and early 30s who are farm mechanics, and they love what they do. Actually, they have their own businesses. And one of my best friends, she runs a business and she goes to different farms to fix the tractors and so forth. If you like to do that work and be in farm operations, great. But I also think that there are a whole other set of skills there as well. I think you need human beings to be able to operate that. Hopefully it does not take over, like robots and automation and all that does not take over the entire farm as well. Yeah, that's a great point.
So would AgTech apply to both the software that you're referring to and hardware? Do you believe the definition of AgTech is technology, both an actual machine and a program that monitors soil or irrigation?
Both. I do see it, but I mean, equipment, farm, I mean, technology has always been a part of agriculture. I think it's actually made a tremendous difference in a positive way over the past 100 years. I mean, if you look at the farm equipment that's out there now, but in terms of the ag tech itself, yes, it does include the hardware, the automation, robotics, and also the software as well. I mean, both. And I mean, actually, it's such a huge term that when you look at the book, it's true. I focused a lot on Salinas Valley in the book, and I'm proud to do that because I think that Salinas is a very unique place. And actually, the story 6 years ago, and how they developed it from an economy that was actually, there are several big companies that had left Salinas, had left people unemployed. The government and the growers came together to find a way to develop that. But I see it where I forgot the rest of your question, but where I'm saying is that I see it as a balance between humans and machines. I'm really hoping it's not going, machines and innovation won't be taking over the farm. And also there's a knowledge set that I don't think you can just tell a robot to do certain things. Like I did mention cover cropping, I mentioned reduced tillage, I mentioned the science of it. I think you need to have, farmers are some of the smartest people I've met. I mean, you have already the weather to contend with, but what about the whole other science, the science and research part, the challenge of these pests and new diseases and having to think quickly on your feet. Oh my gosh, I have to change this crop plan maybe this year so that we don't lose our entire, we don't lose all this money. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So that's a really good point.
So I have a question, Amy.
Okay.
In your history and journalism background.
Yeah.
Why, what is your interest in ag and why women?
Yeah.
You love that.
My interest in ag, in this project and in agriculture came not totally unexpected, actually. And it was it was a total surprise because my passion, my interest has always been telling the undertold, untold stories. And I can begin with telling you that my master's thesis was actually in journalism, but also in going into garment factories in New York City by telling the stories of women working in the garment factories also and telling it from their voice. What I didn't expect, I guess, was to first of all cover agriculture because I grew up in the suburbs of New York where I never stepped foot on a single farm until I was, much later in life. And I actually thought that the food was grown out of supermarket aisles. And when people would say that's a bale of hay, I'd be like, oh my God, how would that happen? Like, does it come like that? So in 2016, I talked to some younger people just before this, colleges and universities who were like, how did you find your passion in this? The thing is, I think it found me. And I often think that sometimes when you're looking too deeply as to finding a passion, you're not going to find it. It found me because I was, first of all, my personality is like when I haven't done something, I'll usually say yes. So when I got a phone call saying you want to cover agriculture in 2016 I said yes. I'd never been to Salinas Valley before. It came from visibly seeing people planting and harvesting in these thousands of acres on the fields and actually connecting that with the food that I purchase. Because I had very little appreciation. Like I'm one of these people who would go to the supermarket in the city and grab all this like bag salad and throw it in there and be like, okay, great. I had absolutely very little appreciation of the process behind it until I arrived. The second part was visibly seeing and going to meetings, industry meetings, where I would look around and I was like 10% of the people were probably women, and very few women of color. And, then I was like, this is odd, there's some sort of why, and at the same time, the third part was the city of Salinas saying, we have this awesome new incubator. The Western Growers Center for Innovation and Technology had just launched, brand spanking new, shining. And they were like, we have startups now in here. And I was like, well, how many of them are founders? How many of your founders are women? And I get a silence. And I was like, yeah, can you share some of the founders with me? Silence. So that it was the silence that got me to continue to ask the questions and to dig up their stories.
Ready?
Oh, it's ready. Great. I didn't even expect that to happen today, so thank you.
I always wanted to have a farm because food is very cultural for me. I'm Filipino. I'm a first generation American, and I always that was the way I knew how to express my love.
We need major scaling companies that have a product in market, they've got financing, they're growing and scaling. And our top 50 here was really around identifying those companies in partnership with our corporate partners.
I still became a grower for a family farm. I was the only grower that was a woman. They hired me because I could speak Spanish, but my whole team was mostly 40 to 50-year-old men. And so earlier on, I had a hard time trying to get them to do the work that they needed. So I was a grower who had to designate tasks, and if they had a question, they would actually ask my superior, who was a man, instead of me, and then I would have to redirect. My supervisor could not speak Spanish.
There's a massive shortage of labor. As Mike said earlier, people are not coming into the industry. The average age is getting older, and we're not seeing new people coming in.
And then as in the tech space, I generally have to talk second. I can't talk first. That's just something that I've picked up. still happens, and I just accept it and move forward. And I am very, as a woman, I'm much more cautious about what I say and how I say it, and ensuring it's more neutral. And
we will do our accelerator launch in April. We run the Thrive Accelerator Program Demo Day.
So we think that most of the companies we invest in are going to grow steadily and happily.
I'm delighted to see Trace Genomics, who won our event last year, in the audience, and it was a great experience for them. So you should see and talk to the folks in terms of how to come through.
The story started more than 5 years ago when Diane and I met in graduate school. Both of us were very passionate about making an impact on the way in which we can arm community members with a way to stay one step ahead of disease, right?
So what we've done is we've built a really simple soil test for growers and farmers to be able to look at the biology of their soil. We all know that the soil biology plays a huge role in yield and crop health, soil health and sustainability.
So when we say soil biology, we mean the billions of living organisms that are present in every teaspoon of soil. Some of them are harmful to the plants, some of them are beneficial, so they're good for the plants. The reason why we delved into AgTech was because we're very close to Salinas, we're very close to the vegetable bowl. We quickly recognized the growers telling us that they need a way in which they can measure soil health, soil disease. It was impossible to miss out on that opportunity.
My grandfather was a farmer, but a very small-scale farmer where he had his own farm that he fed his family with. And so we're definitely entering into a slightly different world than what we've been used to. And so what we do is we listen very carefully to folks who know what they're talking about and mentors who've been able to guide us along some of the tricky challenges.
Yeah, we've been in AgTech now for over 2 years, and at least twice a week, 3 times a week, we're out in the fields in Salinas. And so that feedback loop, where we're technologists at heart. Our team, we have an amazing team to help accomplish that. But we also make sure that we're getting in that feedback from directly from our customer base, the growers, who are in desperate need of this technology, and bringing that back to our team. So we are making the products, making our technology fit the needs of the growers.
In Salinas, agriculture is very traditional, and so even though they do these processes that are very lengthy, it's because they're used to it. And so even though it takes longer, they know it's right because they've been doing it for so long.
In general, farming still uses paper to track things, and the reason for that is because some of their processes, timekeeping especially, is pretty complex. And even more complex in this area because the crop is rotating 2 or 3 times a year. So our company, we do equipment tracking, timekeeping, and field scouting right now. It's a mobile app. We don't have any extra hardware. That's another thing that makes us unique. So all the data collection is just through your smartphone.
I was studying computer science, and then I did work in ag, and I wanted to stay in the area. Everyone that I graduated with has had to leave the Salinas Valley to find a job, and I was lucky enough to find one here. What makes us unique is knowing the ag side and knowing their processes, and I guess having some connections with the growers already.
My parents are immigrants, and they were field workers when they came to the US. I've always kind of been around it. My dad started his own produce company when I was younger, and so just kind of growing up around it.
Having connection with our customers, with our growers, and with the valley. We don't want to come in and show them this is what you need to do. We're also learning with them, so a lot of it was a learning process.
Would you change anything right now as it is?
Yeah, but like the
would
same
you rather
structure
have
is just like opposite, you know?
Yeah, so the same flow, like
Yeah.
1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
and then
Trying to implement that software and telling them we can give them something that works that's better. They've also had other companies come in and say that, but a lot of times it's been companies from Silicon Valley or areas that aren't huge on ag, so they come in from a different perspective. And so what makes us unique is knowing the ag side and knowing their processes, and I guess having some connections with the growers already.
Yeah, once we start messing with it, for sure, we'll have more feedback.
Yeah.
We'll break it. But you guys will make it better.
Yeah, I think so.
And growers speak to growers and say, this is working, and we grow from there.
Only after I spent days, shadowing a grower that I realized this is really, really hard work. And I had a very different kind of appreciation of, the food or the produce I buy now. AgShift in agriculture technology, we want to solve some very real problems which are facing the small and medium commercial farms. We just moved out from a smaller office and we are in the process of getting a bigger office, which is the reason why we are doing this shoot at my home. We have built a platform or a system which helps growers make much better decisions on their farm. So if you look at an organic farm of any profile, typically you'll find that they're growing more than 10 or 15 crops at a time. So what the system does is puts a lot of data and technology to work and helps growers understand your true cost of growing 1 pound of carrot is $4 per pound versus the cost of growing something else is this much. It helps them make many different decisions which before something like AgShift was just based on intuition. And we will then take all that data and automate the compliance reporting for them. Especially organic farm, but even local farms, you're usually dealing with 20 or 30 different kinds of reports which you have to do. It's very time consuming. A similar analogy would be TurboTax. I think we are at a right point where we can put a lot of these innovations to work, to make small farms more sustainable and hence help, what we are really trying to accomplish as a society when we say we have to feed 10 billion people by 2040.
I came here from Vietnam as a refugee. Growing up in Vietnam, I've seen the war and witnessing the cost of malnutrition in children and in women. I decided I would look for a solution, more like a food-based solution for the problem of vitamin A deficiency, which is quite prevalent in Vietnam. Vitamin A deficiency and disorders is just easy to solve, but it's still so prevalent. Vitamin A deficiency compromises the immunity system. It's very important in normal growth of children, but also for eye health. In Vietnam and other places where vitamin A deficiency disorders is quite prevalent, you can see a lot of women when they get older and they have night blindness called xerophthalmia, and that's irreversible. So I decided that northern Vietnam would be the study area. And when I went back there, I realized that meat and fish were quite expensive, and that is the natural source of vitamin A. And I identified it among the fruit and vegetable that people have. Red melon, the fruit to me that stand out, that's the red melon. And when I was little in Saigon, I know that my mother usually, at that time, she would get the fruit and dye the rice with it, make it red rice. And the color of it is so strikingly red. And that's the color of beta-carotene. So beta-carotene actually is the precursor of vitamin A. I just have the hunch that the fruit was really rich in carotenoids. The source of lycopene in this country is tomatoes. And the source of beta-carotene in the Western diet is carrot. Red melon contains 70 times more lycopene than tomatoes, and 10 times more beta-carotene in carrot. I came up with a way so that the farmers can then use whatever they have to make the oil and then keep that oil in their household. Most of the growers in Vietnam are actually women. So my goal is to give back to the growers in Vietnam by providing the market for the products from red melon so that they can continue growing it. I intend to use a percentage of the proceeds, the revenues of red melon oil to help the growers of Vietnam. Also, I think investors would not want to take risk in an idea. And to implement this idea, you do need capital. At the beginning, basically, I feel like I work alone a lot. And so my goal is still to be able to find team members and colleagues and a network of people that in a similar field.
A lot of women in technology, if you look at the ratios, many of them drop out. So first 3 or 4 months I was just meeting farms. That in itself has been quite challenging, because they're not as prepared for someone of my profile to show up to the farm. The fact that you're a minority or you're this this person who I am, Asian American. There were people who had this question mark on, what am I doing there? Or why do they have to deal with me, right? Me being who I am. So, there are times when it kind of takes a while for me to build that relationship with growers. When it comes to something very important for a venture at a stage like ours, which is fundraising, honestly, it has been more difficult than it has been with my previous ventures.
It's challenging. More so in Vietnam also, believe it or not. Still very old culture where women are not supposed to run a company.
With my previous ventures, I was owning the technology. I wasn't the one responsible to raise funds, right? So that's one part of it. Whether it's finding the engineering talent or whether it's finding the investment money, I think it's a combination. I don't know which one is bigger or smaller, but the fact that I'm Asian American, I'm minority, I'm a woman, and then I have this this intention of doing something in ag. When you add all that together, it becomes a very difficult problem. It's getting there, but it's not at a point where you'd see many more women entrepreneurs really trying to solve challenges in agriculture until we fix some of these things.
Go and you meet with either farmers or health officers, doctors and scientists. Usually there's no other women around. So one time I showed up at, I was taken to meet with the officers of the township that were supposed to do the study. And so I walked into the meeting room, and there may be about a dozen or so of all different officers and doctors, and then I saw that at the end of the room on the top there's a TV that playing a Playboy movie. And there's the whole time, and everybody was just watching the movie. And they would expect me to translate it for them because the movie is in English. And it's a pornographic. So finally I say, unless we turn off the TV, then I would leave.
I've been in computer science and technology for almost my entire education, and so being in a male-dominated environment is something that I guess you kind of grow used to, and
Obviously, you notice, you get noticed, and there are events that happen being a female in a male-dominated field and industry.
I was experiencing it up in the Bay Area, so they're not, even though companies try to make it better, it's not very welcoming. Even programming isn't a very welcoming for women. I guess it's more like negative. But I just always felt like people were questioning whether I could do something, I guess. But here it's like everyone's really welcoming. I feel more accepted, and it's been a lot more fun working in the area.
You always find a way to work with folks who are supportive and who really believe in the same problems and in solving the same problems that you do. And so that's really always been our focus is, work first, technology first, and everything else, you find a way to blaze a trail through the rest.
Yeah, I think it's more and more that women to be in the field, in the AgTech field and successful, and the more we gain our credibility and perhaps some respect. I see now there's a lot of women in engineering, in science, and so that trend will change now.
We're minorities in many different ways. We're young, we're women, we're also ethnically minorities, and so I think maybe you just get used to being a minority and you stop thinking about it after a while. Everyone's an outsider in their own way, I think, and you can often find yourself in a new environment. And so I think once you're able to not focus on that and focus on the successes and the things you have going for you, and the things that you really, the message that you want to get out there, then the conversation becomes a lot easier, and people are actually often very, very much willing to listen to us.
It's still very unrepresented, but we are a newer company where we still, I guess, hope to change that. And we're starting a movement, even here in this Western Grower building, they hope to bring that movement in as well and shift the focus in that women can also do this job, and there's a lot of opportunity for men and women in this area.
It has to start early on. It has to start young. Like my daughter is 10-year-old and she's already sold into agriculture. She's extremely fascinated. I took her to certain farms. She has been seeing what I want to do. She asks me, what is it that you're doing? And when I share that with her, she has this spark in her eye that, wow, it's that complex. I didn't know that's how you grew strawberries. That's how early it has to start, that basic education. If we really want to get, the younger generation or the next set of people and kids to understand about agriculture, they should be spending some time on a farm. And then they will have appreciation for it, which is inbuilt in them. And then you have the right talent. Once the spark is there, they will find most innovative ways to solve things. We have always done that. I'm already training my daughter, exposing her to the good and the bad of agriculture. If we start doing that, that would be enough to have enough young women entrepreneurs to start changing these challenges we have in agriculture.
Underrepresented minorities will look at a job description and they will not apply unless they feel like they fit 100% of all the requirements. So we explicitly say in our hiring process, hey, if you think you even meet 50% of these qualifications, you should apply. We're reaching out to you because we think you'd be a good candidate. Our company is currently a majority women. It is majority people of color as well, and those are demographic numbers that not a lot of technology startups inside or outside of ag have, and it's something that we work very actively to recruit.
When you have a diverse group of people, decision making is more robust, and you get better decision making and better outcomes, better creativity, because you have different perspectives. Studies from groups like Catalyst showing that often return on investment is higher for an investor in a company that has a higher level of diversity.
There have always been women in agriculture, but kind of behind the scenes, more in terms of bookkeeping and running the family business. What you see now are more and more women up front, becoming the actual entrepreneurs themselves.
We're certainly seeing more resumes come in from women, and part of this is also knowing how to communicate what you need at the company. The less specific you make it, in terms of like the nitty-gritty details of what exactly you want this person to have, like the skill set, you know, the more you open it up and allow for a little flexibility, you'll be surprised at the types of people who will apply to those job postings that are a little bit, you know, allow for a little bit more flexibility.
We need microbiologists, we need pest specialists, we need crop science, soil science experts. But if you're looking into nutrition, sales, marketing, product development, we need that too. If engineering is something you're looking at, we clearly need automation. It's hard for me to imagine a discipline of study that would not be utilized by the ag industry.
Trace especially, I think our goal would be to bring in and to maintain a diversity of opinions and perspectives and voices and backgrounds, because that is really key to solving an interdisciplinary problem.
If you are a VC and you are not investing in women, I don't know what you're doing. You know, given that the numbers are that immigrant-run businesses, women-run businesses tend to do better. Like the data is there, so it's actually a business opportunity. It's not like a charity case.
In America, less than 1% of the population actually farms anymore, right? And that less than 1% is actually an average age of 62 to 65. So I'm actually a third-generation farmer here in Yolo County. My family did about 4,000 acres of grain haze and custom harvesting and orchard crops and livestock. So we have a very, I would say honestly, precarious situation where we have an aging population of farmers and not very many people who are doing it.
The estimate is 50% of farmland is going to change hands in the next 10 years. We're not talking about dating apps, we're talking about food. Like we're talking about raising food for our communities, and if we don't build that talent pipeline, we're kind of all screwed.
So what's interesting is that there is such a growth and development in this sector right now that I'm seeing more and more women that are interested in the field. It's important that the field be diversified and that women be at the table for a whole variety of reasons. Women don't get treated well unless there are enough, there's a critical mass.
When I was the program director for AgStart, I saw a lot of up-and-coming AgTech companies that were headed by women, which really made my heart smile, and I never doubted them. As a woman in farming in general, I never doubted that it was possible and that it was coming.
That the perception could be from me, that because I'm no longer in that network, that I have to be before, I feel like I'm alone out there. And now the more and more I see other people like me and they're successful. And that gives me the confidence, and that also maybe project it out to other people who interact with me.
Demographically speaking, if you look at the next generation is in itself more diverse. Our country is getting more diverse as the next generation grows up and takes on leadership roles.
So I want women to be able to earn a good living as well, and for them to be able to earn, to have their own businesses and to deploy technology means that they're going to be able to earn a good living.
I was going to go onto the internet and share with you a little bit about the website. And if I can drive this, I want to share with you what today Farms to Incubators is doing after the film, after the book. So if I can get to Google, and maybe we can turn some of the lights down again. Thank you. I'm going to go to the Farms to Incubators website because I talked a little bit about what the purpose. Now watch. Let's see. Incubators.com. Okay, and before I do this, I want to share today what it is, and then I'll share the website. From Farms to Incubators 2022 is on a mission to connect, elevate, and inspire women in agri-food tech. There is a clear lack of representation and funding, especially for women of color in the agri-food tech space. This space contains some of the fastest growing sectors globally, providing job opportunities which require new sets of skills and knowledge extending beyond traditional agriculture. Farms to Incubators is building bridges that connect youth, women, and those from underserved communities to those opportunities. All right, how are we doing this? Storytelling. Building upon our award-winning documentary and book, we will continue showcasing women innovators in food farming and agri-food tech with a focus on women of color. Education, training, mentorship, and workshops. We will launch our pilot mentorship program with educational institutions. That's in the pipeline to be continued. Community, building one of the most comprehensive directories of women in agri-food. So I want to share a little bit and drive the website to share a little bit about how this is being done. If we can kill the lights, thank you. All right. So recently redesigned. It had actually been the same, look for about 4 years. But the idea of this new website is to actually use visuals to tell more of the story and what it's about. So a number of the photographs in the book and of the women are now on the front page of the site. It's no accident that there are 3 buckets here, one being the book, the next being the film, not the entire film, but a trailer. But the third part of it is the resources part as well, and I'm going to go to resources here. The goal of the resources is that people can easily come to the site, and it starts off with the Women in Agri-Food Tech directory. Searchable Airtable directory that lists the names and social media platforms of women founders and leaders in ag tech. So I'm going to share. Visually, it's not very appealing, but that's okay for now. In the future, maybe we'll find other ways to attract, especially younger people. But you'll see that the names in first name and last name next of women who have contributed their own names, their own information. And, they talk a little bit about, are they co-founders, the company names, areas of expertise are highlighted here. Their Twitter handles all has been fact-checked. The website, city, and their LinkedIn, and if they choose to have it public, their emails as well. So this directory is embeddable. There is an embeddable code as well. Let me go back up. And we've actually put over here that if you want to update or fill it out, you can fill out the short survey, and it is updated. The moment somebody actually sends in a submission, I and a few other, and if it's does not check out, we do not add it to the directory actually at all. Someone recently, a number of people who have submitted recently are educators actually in agriculture. And the question became, should they be added or should journalists be added? And my argument is absolutely yes, they should be added as well. And some of them actually are founders of ag tech companies. The second phase of from Farms to Incubators is actually creating an Airtable for all of these resources that you see here today. Fellowships, general accelerators, ag tech accelerators. So if I click into ag tech accelerators, actually you'll see that quite a bit of it still needs, we have, how do I go back? That's all right, I'm jumping around today. But we're going to have all of this listed actually on the Airtable very soon. We're going to have internships and so forth. So just that's sharing a bit about the next phase of things as well. In terms of storytelling in the future, there is likely to be a podcast, and the goal is to actually have, in the next phase as well, maybe a sequel documentary also, because I think that the documentary actually has been a really good platform in telling the stories. So I want to actually use a little bit of time to share, to take a couple of more questions, but then I want to move into the sort of the third phase of our event today, which is to share a little bit about the art, and to introduce some of special guests today, and to actually have them share a little bit about things. And then we're going to open it up. I'd like to leave at least minutes at the so we can, there are some books for sale, and we can share some more about the t-shirts and so forth. And then I'd like to give time in those at least 20 minutes for you to walk around, to look at the art, and also to ask questions. I think that's a huge part of this, or to network with each other and talk to one another as well. I'm sure each of you probably has your own interest in agriculture and ag tech that you like to ask. So we're going to turn the lights on, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the art part of this, which is really special. Is this the first time that From Farms to Incubators has had an art exhibition? The answer would be no. There was an exhibition in November of 2020 at the National Steinbeck Center in Salinas, California, where it took 18 months to plan that. And the mayor, I think Karen Ross, the agriculture secretary in California, we had big name speakers actually all lined up for that, who were going to talk about why it is so important to have women celebrated in this field. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we had a phone call. We had the artists already. We had the photographers. We had artists that contributed. I got a phone call saying we can't do this anymore. Our center is completely closed. We can't have this. And I said we really need to find a way to try to have this. So we had it virtually 2020. If you dig into sort of the website, you'll see that we have an 8-minute presentation that you'll see the showcase. It was actually physically in the Steinbeck Center space, but only one single person actually saw it, the curator. Nobody else ever saw it. So I said, gosh, this is a real shame. We need to get the photography out there, get the art out there, so that people can go there and physically have a relationship with this and take time to talk to the artists, the photographers, the writer, and say, why did you do this? Why did you create this? Why? It takes time to create something. It takes time to set it up and to bring it someplace. What is motivating you? So I'm really just so happy that Mina and I met, and the stars aligned and the constellation, because the original gallery, there's some art that's no longer up, that's not here today. It's a pop-up exhibit, but we have some new art, new photography that's here. And I'm going to first of all introduce some of our special guests and artists, but also briefly share that actually later on when you walk around, you'll see that actually it's very diverse. There's photography, there are paintings, but there's also some carved seeds there as well, and I will actually talk a little bit about that. But yeah, I'm going to have the artists come up and then introduce them. I'm going to start with Margot Sousa, and I'm going to have Margot introduce herself, but I'm going to briefly introduce her and say that she's just amazing. She ran a whole dairy farm. She's a farmer. But she's also, and she's a mentor to so many, young people who are interested in entrepreneurship, and also she's an amazing artist who paints, and she can talk more about her art as well. And so I'm really proud to have her today. She's going to talk for a few minutes, and then I'm going to introduce some of the other artists too. Yep.
Yeah, basically, I ran our dairy. I came back in '84. I was a nurse for 24 years, and I helped I ran the dairy for 29, and the first 15 years I ran it with my dad. He started at 33, by 84 he was totally exhausted. So, but anyway, how I got going with the art. Well, I sold the dairy in 2012, and I also had an issue with breast cancer. So I joined a program at Memorial Hospital in Modesto, and I started doing artwork. So I've been doing artwork in my 70s. And so now I'm doing cows because it just helps me kind of transition from being a dairy farmer to being an artist. The other thing I'm doing, I've made shirts out of each one of these. And lately I have sold them and I give $10 to the cancer program with every shirt. I'm not really here to totally sell or anything, but I just want you to know it really makes people happy. And my shirt is the poppy one. And she has the lucky one on. And of course Artie's over there, and Flutter and Lucky and Poppy. So I have shirts for each one. But basically, Amy and I met maybe 6 months ago. We've been friends ever since, and she's doing a wonderful job. And when I was a dairy farmer back in '84, and I have to be Portuguese background, there were no other women in the area running a dairy. So I worked with him for 15 years. He died, and then I carried it on for the next 14. And then after that, I got involved at UC Merced, so I'm involved in the Leadership Center there, and I just love working with young people. And if you haven't been to UC Merced, it's a great place. It's ethnic diverse, and a lot of first and family go to college. So. And there's more women going into engineering and computer science now. This young man here, Zachary, said one of his classes that 50% are women, which is really surprising. So, but anyway, thank you very much, and I'm glad you're all here today because really for our food supply, we need to have more people involved. And the younger generation and the older generation need to work together. That's what I do. I love working with, if I go judge the engineering pitches, I have a person 40 or 50 years younger than me setting up the computer, we judge together. And so down the road, young people need to help us, and we need to help them. So, and thank you all very much.
I'm going to introduce Dexter next. Dexter's operating the camera as well, right? I consider Dexter a real partner in this project from the very beginning. When I first said I wanted to write a book in 2018, I had first of all never written a book before. I should say it's my first film and my first book. And when I first said I wanted to write a book, I had imagined a book that, you know, if you go to Barnes and Nobles, you pick it out, there's the sleeve and there's lots of words. I did not imagine a photocentric book. The more that I talked about AgTech though, the more that I would see, like, you know, I just tested on my friends who had no background in ag, and I'd be like, I'm gonna write a book about AgTech and women in AgTech, and they'd be like, Amy, you need to find another hobby. Like, do you, like, you know, you're going to spend your weekends, like, doing this? You know, is anybody going to care and read about this? You know, please, I beg you, like, find something else to do. And then, but the more that I heard the women's stories, the more I was like, huh, I'm really interested in their stories. What about if we added more photography in there to show people who the women are and to get photographs that connect with, you know, that have them in action. So I called up Dexter. I can't remember the details and the nitty gritty, but I do remember that I needed to get all new photographs through a real camera because I had taken all the photographs from my iPhone, and later on I was told by the publisher, no. So I've learned a lot through the process, and I remember Dexter immediately saying yes. And that actually meant a great deal. He traveled and he made a number of road trips to take pictures of the women that you'll see in the book. So I'd just like him to come up here and talk briefly about his photography and his love of it as well. Yeah.
Well, thank you for all coming. Yeah, this was a passion project. I gotta say, between 2018 and 2020, between all the travel, all the appointments I had to make, a couple of sleepovers, hotel stays. Yeah, it's it was really interesting. And then having to make sure that you coordinated timing when you actually met the clients and stuff like that. I actually had one where I actually had a situation like, well, I'm gonna be in town that week. We'll just schedule an appointment all around that. And it totally worked out. I ended up being in Lodi for an event, and I drove to Sacramento to do a photo shoot. So kind of worked out. For my background, I've been doing landscape photography for probably over 30 years, mostly in the Santa Cruz and Monterey County areas. A lot of the photos that are in the book, and some are on the wall, like this sunset photo right, or excuse me, sunrise photo right here, is pretty much primarily what I do. I've been having a lot of experience doing a lot of night work, but the beauty of shooting agriculture is you can sit on the side of the road and shoot everything without even having to step on the private property. There are a few situations where I did have to get permission to step on the private property, and everybody was super cordial about it. So, neat. And I think that pretty much covered it.
And I want to briefly introduce Zachary Silva, who's awesome. He is a student, an engineering student at UC Merced, and an amazing photographer. And we were connected recently as well. And he has contributed some of the photographs that you'll see on the website, and also you'll see it today also. And just amazing. He has certainly a passion for telling stories through his photographs. So I'd love him to come up here and talk briefly about his photos and his love for.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for having me today, Amy, and thank you for being here, Margot. Thanks for being here, Dexter. This is actually my first time I have, my artwork on display in person, physically. So this is, a pretty big moment for me. I'm a second-year mechanical engineering major at the University of California, Merced. Beautiful school that emphasizes, AgTech because it's a growing industry around the area, right? And so my two photographs here today are the black and white and the landscape of the cow. And so the inspiration behind those photographs are just the research that I do on campus and my love for drones and photography. So it's combining all three. And I get to create beautiful artwork that I get to share with others. And it means a lot to others and myself. And so yeah, combining all three into a unique photograph with a different perspective, I think is super cool. And so yeah, I just want to thank you all for being here. So thank you.
For all of that, I want to share name a couple of names of artists who are not here today, and share a bit. Is that if you look there are two paintings of actually Salinas Valley. One is an aerial, and it's by a female artist named Daphne Paracchini, who lives in Salinas. She had contributed those from the very beginning, actually originally to the book, and then it was shown at the Steinbeck Center as well. I think it's really beautiful. And then there is a painting on it's hard to see maybe from the back, but it's up here, and that is by a young artist named Myra Valtier. I'll just share briefly about Myra is that she's a graphics designer actually, and she teaches at Digital Nest, which is a nonprofit organization based out in Watsonville, and they actually have a pretty big facility in Salinas. They train youth 14 to 24 years old on various digital and tech skills with the idea of leading them to careers including agriculture. She has a real passion for using her graphics design skills for telling the story of amplifying women, especially in agriculture. So she drew that. It's a paint just for this show today. She has done a lot of the social media, the posters, the graphics from farms to incubators, and she's an amazing young woman. The other art up there that it's quite a surprise, but it's beautiful, are the seeds. There are two sets of carved seeds up here by a good friend, an amazing artist in New York called Sergey Jivtin. I don't even know how to explain this, but he takes seeds that are even just like the size of rice and carves like paintings and images on them, microscopic. So a few years ago, when I put together the book, I sought out some special art for the book, and I said to him, Sergey, how about doing a seed from farms to incubators? And he was like, sure. And the first thing that came to mind was the red melon seed. And he was like, how big is the seed? And I said, I think it's pretty big for you. It's the size of a quarter. So that's considered a large seed. And he was like, oh my gosh, it's so easy. So one of the seeds is a carved seed of the red melon where I won't give it away, but you'll see some of Vietnam, some of the east and west not seed. Second seed is a lima bean, actually seed that he carved in to celebrate the from farms to incubators. So I definitely want to allow, as I said, time for mingling and for enjoying the art, talking to artists also. So
if you have
I will open it up to a couple of questions here.
I have a few questions here, maybe on what has impressed us in the art. Questions are basically, okay, you're doing this for women. There's a mention of equity and diversity and women of color. And the conversation is it's not enough. But you realize that there are only less than 6% population in that space. So where is your heart coming from? And what is the overall purpose of, promoting this kind of environment? And these Asian women in technology, is there a message here?
Yeah, I actually take it from a standpoint of something very positive. There's a chapter in there, I believe, called Challenges and Opportunities. I focused a lot more on the opportunities in that traditionally agriculture and technology, broadly speaking, have been male dominated. But I see AgTech and actually the extension of AgTech, of agri-food tech, as being a new window of opportunity for people who have traditionally not been the leaders in a space. So it's actually a new space and a new set of opportunities that I actually see. Can men be, or young men or youth in general? Yes, absolutely. I think it's creating a paradigm shift, a new kind of workforce and environment where in the past you needed perhaps to be part of a family, part of generations, a certain gender to have something handed down to you. But now I'm hoping 50 years from now that this book is going to be more like somebody picking it up and being kind of just amazed that something like that was written. I'm a history major as well, so actually in writing this, I'm hoping that there will be a shift in that also. So I don't so much focus on what some people might say, there's not enough, I mean, that's a story that's kind of obvious in a lot of different ways, but it's kind of like the goal of this is a next phase to create the tools, the resources, to the stories that have not been told to inspire and to educate a new generation. So it's much more a focus of the latter than it is kind of going through the history of things as well. Though history is critical. I mean, the question of why is this needed would definitely connect back to what was not there as well. So that's an excellent point. Should all women be included? If a woman is interested or, in this new field of agribusiness, absolutely she should be included. And I think that the question should be where, let me just finish to where, yeah, let me actually finish. Is that to me, it actually seems kind of obvious. I'm a little bit surprised. I mean, number one is, as I've said before, this is actually a new area of growth, agri-food and things. And the reasons of why that's come up, I think I brought it up earlier actually, is that there's more and more investment and interest from investors going into this area because of the challenges of feeding a certain population of people globally, right? So yes, there are not enough women at leadership and decision-making positions. And unfortunately, the funding for women-founded companies is still incredibly low. The number of women sitting on the boards of even agribusiness companies is very low. If you want me to name a single woman who sits on a Fortune 500 company for an ag-related company, I can name Beth Ford today of Land O'Lakes, but how many more? So the question is, are women interested in this area? Certainly. In the hundreds of talks I've gone to at high schools, junior high, colleges, universities, why am I continuing with this is partly because of those many talks. Often I get emails and phone calls from the people in the audience, maybe including yourself, right, who are like, how can I get involved? Like, I am interested in exploring career opportunities in this. I don't come from agriculture. I don't come from AgTech at all. Share with me what resources are there and how can I get involved? So that is where I see a need. And that is where every speech that I go to, I say, if you share a similar passion, please join. We need more people to tell the stories. We need the funding to do another documentary, to do another book. We need more people to actually screen the films and actually be advocates and ambassadors for this as well. In order for any change to be made, I certainly won't be able to be the only one. Yes, absolutely. It doesn't matter if you're a man or somebody who's older or younger or a young man, young women, children, please join in also, because I do see this tied very closely to workforce and new opportunities also. So yeah, and we can talk further. We can talk further about that. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for doing this, and I'm really surprised. I didn't know that ag is moving to this high-end technology.
Mm-hmm.
We work with farm workers. I work for a non-profit organization, and we work with farm workers' families. So my question is, AgTech will help the agriculture to be less reliable on low wages workers? How that would impact?
Yeah, the part about AgTech and production staff and field workers and so forth is that, first of all, there unfortunately in general, broadly speaking, are not enough field workers now. They're aging out and so forth. But the part about innovation being woven into new kinds of equipment or part of the equipment and integrated with that is definitely a possibility. And as well, it's not just a possibility, it's happening. I was at a farm in Salinas several months ago where the new kind of equipment is, it's more efficient in picking the vegetables, but it's more ergo-friendly as well, right? So you have older workers, and yet you have a piece of equipment that allows it cuts the lettuce with water pressure, right? Then the assembly line is right there to be brought up on this moving piece of equipment, right? And the workers are sorting the vegetables right there and then. So it's less of just getting out there and picking, but more of sort of a one-step process using that also. So I would say that, things are being developed for field workers as well. How quickly it's being developed and how efficient it is, I think that it's important to talk to the workers really closely and the production staff to ask them what is being needed also as well. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but yeah, I think that that's an important part of it is actually to talk to the staff and to ask them what's needed. And maybe you need Spanish, you need more Spanish speaking staff to do so as well. Any more questions? So if there's no more questions, there's 20 minutes right now. And I would like to, first of all, really thank, this is the tail end of my tour. I actually spent the 4 days at Cal State, in total, Cal State's Stanislaus and Turlock, University of the Pacific. And I probably spoke to about 12 different classes and venues there. Most of them young people in their 20s and even younger, who had never heard about AgTech and opportunities in AgTech. So it's a real pleasure to end this trip to actually be able to share the next phase of From Farms to Incubators, to also invite people interested to join in the initiative, and to say that I really want to thank Mina and the Fresno County Public Library and the team here. There's been folks videoing and also sharing the word out about this event. Really hoping to keep in touch with, folks. If you have any other questions, you can email me at amy@farmstoincubators.com. It's not just a California initiative or a New York initiative. It's really to capture as many innovations and stories as possible of women globally, because I think that's the big vision goal. So thank you, and I want to leave the rest of the time for there are books there's T-shirts there. Please mingle and network and ask many questions.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Amy. Thank you, Margot, and everybody else. And once again, I apologize for the technical difficulty that we had, and your patience. And I invite you to come closer and take a look at the artwork in person and ask questions from the artist, or just take your time and look around. It's beautiful. Especially, I recommend the seeds. It's very interesting. Thanks.